Welcome back, guys. It's been a while since we've done one of these. Hope you all are doing good on this fine Sunday. Alright. So, we're going to jump right into it with Roottreemania. Let's get into this. What's up, Carl?
Hi, I'm Clark.
Or Clark.
Probably
Why did I
not
think
who
it was
you
Carl?
expected to be
Clark.
knocking, but life's funny.
You know what it is? I was recently watching somebody's reaction to the llamas with hats videos yesterday. I think that's how I ended up thinking Carl instead of Clark. Carl!
You've done well staying anonymous. It took us a while to track you down. A lot has happened in the last year.
Wait, I've been staying anonymous?
But there's stuff going on behind the scenes, too.
How have I been staying anonymous from any of the root trees when I'm getting one of the root trees money from the family basically being rerouted to me? That's kind of interesting.
I never wanted to be president. I'm not great with stress.
Wait,
With my mother's deteriorating
Clark is president?
I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I'm not here for sympathy. I'm here because part of the fallout of Sam's book is that everyone's coming out of the woodwork.
Yeah. Understandable.
Now that it's public knowledge, the Capt'n Trust covers any root tree despite their history with us. A lot of potential cousins have surfaced.
Wait, it wasn't public knowledge that the Capt'n Trust covers any root tree? I thought it was common knowledge, like it was on the internet what the Capt'n Trust did, and it was any blood relative of Elias and his descendants was a root tree that was covered by the trust.
You may have seen that man on the cover of News Time. That was a disaster for us. And then Miracle went and made it all about himself.
News Time and Miracle.
The long and short of it is a lot of potential cousins just showed up. Sam's helping some of them, but she's not really going about it the right way. And she's not taking calls from anyone in the family. I let it slip through a mutual friend that I found you, and I was stopping in. It's manipulative, but I'm hoping she'll reach out to you. You can let her know I'm on her side.
Why would she think he wasn't?
In the meantime, if you're willing, I can share our files with you. Pass them along to Sam if she reaches out. I'm genuinely hoping she'll realize I'm an ally.
Okay, so Clark, as the president of the Roottree Company, Sam's helping out these cousins, and Clark's saying as the president of the company, hey, we're also willing to help them if we can identify them. So, Sam, let us know who they are so we can help them.
Feel free to do your own research. I've been told you enjoy things like this. To each their own.
Alright. And here is the Tree of Infidelities. So we've got an infidelity from 1921, which would have been quite a while back. It would be one of these two generations. And then we've got 1949, 1975 to 1982, somewhere in that range. Final. Oh, that's why. 75 would have been the first affair. 82 would have been the second affair. The second. Whoa, wait. Wait. Who is this person? They got around. And then the one over here, which is between two people on the tree. Ooh. Spicy. From 1998. That would have been this generation. Notable events, the 6 pieces, which we did learn about. Today is August 3rd, 1999. It's been 8 months since you helped Sam Madsen with the research necessary for her book. Sam was true to her word and paid you an incredibly large sum of money. She never mentioned you by name, however, you've managed to keep a low profile. The Roottrees, on the other hand, have not. I'm pretty sure at the end of the Roottrees are dead, it mentioned that they, like, faded from the news. Below is a summary of notable events since the book's release, though you can refresh your memory in full detail by searching online. I'm guessing over time more info came out, so they kept going back into it. 6 pieces Sam Madsen's books about Elias Roottree was released in February. It was a bestseller for a few months. At the time, Carl had not yet been replaced as the president. The Roottree Rift. In March, the Roottree Company stumbled publicly as they attempted to respond to the book's release, with multiple conflicting press releases and a clear lack of leadership. Clark Rafferty LaRoe. Clark was announced as the permanent successor to Carl Roottree and welcomed Sam Madsen to the family officially. The company hired an outside legal group to handle the changes to the Clansed Trust. This included any other new questions of lineage. 5 Ps. After this announcement, there was a rash of different people claiming to be Roottrees, mostly dismissed as opportunists and scammers. The highest profile of these, by a wide margin, was a rapper named Felix Fellows, who changed his moniker to 5 Ps as a publicity move. At the same time, 5 Ps is the only notable person on the updated tree. Roottreemania. In another high-profile misstep, Miracle Roottree publicly and vehemently denied that 5 Ps was a Roottree. The Roottree's legal team then offered to do a DNA test to get 5 Ps to drop his claim. In a moment that caught what seemed like the entire world by storm, the test proved that he was a Roottree. Suddenly the world was obsessed with the Roottrees again. So that's why they got thrown back into it. That makes sense. A Naughty Mom and Jane Doe Roottree. In July, an anonymous woman, who the press began to refer to as a Naughty Mom, appeared in interviews with her face and voice disguised. She claims that an affair with a Roottree led to the birth of her daughter, Jane Doe Roottree. If true, this would make her daughter yet another secret Roottree, and therefore entitled to a share of the Clansed Trust. Nobody knew it at the time, but this would turn out to be the last chapter in the Roottreemania saga. So, a Naughty Mom would be this one, then? Because it mentions the last one in the saga. Unless it's actually this one. But no, because it mentions a single daughter. It would be that one, because this is Final Affair from the older gen. As more and more of a Naughty Mom's story came out, people began to notice how much it echoed 5 P's in nearly every significant way. The court of public opinion began to turn, confirming the world's suspicions. The DNA test, orchestrated by lawyers on both sides, proved that her daughter was not a Roottree. This final event caused public disappointment, smugness from doubters, and countless accusations of the entire ordeal being an elaborate hoax or attempt at fraud. Things got a bit ugly, and the fun of Roottreemania seemed to disappear overnight. Now, a month later, it feels like a distant memory. So that does explain why Sam is, like, separately helping out those that have come forward that are distant relatives and those that aren't. Alright. So previously on The Rootrees Are Dead. This is a new investigation with a new focus after many months of newfound interest in the Rootrees. It is recommended that you try and catch up with some of what happened since last time. Some web searches may yield new or different results, and some books and magazines from your previous investigation may be relevant to your new one. It's also a much more widespread search. The list of first and last names you can choose from will contain red herrings. Not all of them will be used. Below is a reminder of some of the most notable beats of your initial dive into the Roottree family. All evidence from before is still available, and for your convenience, any searches that do not lead to new information still function as they did during your first investigation. The Roottree Candy Company was founded by Elias and Gwyneth many years ago. The entire family has a financial reliance on the health of that company. Most of the action took place in and around Butler County, Pennsylvania, where the company was initially located. Elias, Carl, and Rihanna were on the cover of magazines. Other notable Roottrees, such as Lauren Roottree, Miracle Roottree, and Jim Roottree, had physical media such as record labels, books, and movies associated with them. Lauren's 2 diaries were probably the most useful resources overall, mentioning many of her relatives directly. The 5 pieces Elias' children could be identified based on the initials of the original candy flavors. But not quite. There were 5 presidents of the Roottree Company. Many were featured in periodicals. Stephanie Jones and Brian Jones were featured in campaign posters and led to Caroline Morton's art book, which enabled you to fill out more of the tree. Many of the younger Roottrees were found by following a complex rabbit hole through a conspiracy site that led to finding a searchable web address for Chris Rafferty, Lauren's grandson. November Roottree was really difficult to place. Her occupation could only be found via Brian Jones' company's website. Yeah. Ronald and his brother Robert Roottree go by Ron and Robbie. Both worked on a TV show called Brother Trouble until Robbie embezzled money and fled to Paris. Ron unsuccessfully tried to have Robbie removed from the Clansed Trust. Sam and her father were cryptically mentioned in a book about historical letters. There were also a few dead ends and red herrings. Elias Herring Roottree, who claimed he was a Roottree but was not. Family Man, a book about Elias Roottree, turned out to be propaganda and not useful. Lauren's other book, historical romance novels, were not very useful on their own, though could lead to other information. Caroline Morton's sculptures were not useful. All right. All right. So I want to read this because it explains some of the symbols. Today, August 3rd, 1999, there was a knock on the door. I'm going to skip this part. To both of you, the company I hired to help us with the Clansed Trust is busy pouring through the entire family's history, as well as people they may have had contact with. That said, the family is not particularly happy with this and are doing their best to slow things down. Many of them are actively avoiding our interviews. Every time there's a high-profile public case, it causes headaches. So please, I don't mind if you do your research, but I ask that you stop going to the press. Instead, we have a highly trained team of lawyers to back you up. We're ready and willing to verify anyone and everyone you believe could be realistically part of a relationship that led to the birth of a new Roottree. Just tell us who to investigate by filling in the new sections of the tree, and we'll take the time to handle verifying that the timeline checks out. Please keep in mind why we're here. If someone didn't have a child or has already been disqualified by our lawyers, like in the case of the girl with the negative DNA test, there won't be a place for them on the tree. We're not just looking for affairs and infidelities. We're only looking for ones that led to potential new Roottrees. Okay. Some spots in the new section will be marked with a tree icon. Those areas are reserved for members of the original family tree you filled in 8 months ago. Just like last time, be sure to use birth names for everyone you add. Married names or nicknames won't be enough. To start sorting out the infidelities, I recommend you turn your eyes to the men in positions of power. I'd love to say that's only because it would have been a lot harder for the women to hide 9 months of pregnancy and birth without the family noticing, but I can't. I'll be blunt. I'm no stranger to infidelity. I wish I could claim that I was a perfect husband, but you've seen the family tree, so why pretend? Yeah. We know about Clark infidelity. He actually went from one LaRoe sister to the younger LaRoe sister. Some of us learned how to wield our family name and fortune to our benefit. Consequences be damned. I can't change the past or unhurt those who I've betrayed. Instead, all I can do is be honest with myself and to you. Refuse to make any more mistakes and do my best to sort out the various messes we've left behind. So please fill in the tree and together we can figure out how to begin to make amends. Good luck and thank you both. Alright. So we know that 5Ps is a notable person. He's the only notable person on the tree, which means we should be able to just copy and spider search him. Good old dial-up. Alright, 5Ps, aka Felix Fellows, is a rapper who was found some recent radio play after being publicly confirmed as a long-lost Roottree, and entitled to part of their fortune. His alias 5Ps is a play on the 5 Pieces, an article you find on a website known for their particularly harsh reviews of modern music. Gives his most recent album, Root of All Evil, 1 star out of 7, for whatever reason, with the headline, "More poser than my action figure collection." Oof. The review mentions his real name is David, and he used to go by Dirte Davy. And the author rues the fact that this rebranding was a blatant marketing stunt at the expense of his mother's tragic past. She overdosed when she was 16. Which means she had him before she was 16. So whoever the Roottree was that knocked her up, we've got problems. Apparently, only one of the songs on the album is new, and the others were simply rewritten to turn blatant references to sex, drugs, and violence into clumsy euphemisms. His rise to prominence was kickstarted when he appeared a few months ago on the cover of News Time, holding a photo of his mother with Guy Hudson. At first, the Roottree company denied it vehemently. Miracle Roottree even appeared on the same magazine a week later. But since then, they've backtracked and publicly welcomed him to the family. Their press release at the time stated they had new evidence that confirmed his story. So, Guy Hudson is one of these people. Based off of the timeline, Guy could have been this one. Because Guy Hudson is part of... Where is he? It's been a while since I looked here. He was the 3rd president. He's part of the... He's younger than even the next generation or the Free Spirits, right? No, he's part of the Free Spirits. And also has no children with his wife. But apparently he does have a child, known as 5Ps now. Alright. So News Time is going to be an article that we're going to have to search. I spell that right? And look for okay, so we got news time added. There we go. Felix Fellows, aka 5Ps, famously appeared on the cover of News Time, kicking off Roottreemania. Then a week later, Miracle Roottree appeared on the cover of the magazine in an article that focused heavily on 5Ps as well. A summary of both articles, as well as a close-up of the photo 5Ps is holding on the cover of his issue, have been added to your evidence. Alright, let's look into this. Gotta make sure none of these are faces we can click on in the background. So they got us with that once. At a Roottree family picnic? That can't be right. No, wait. The rapper 5Ps appeared on the cover of News Time holding this Polaroid of his mother, Joanna, when she was Zach Morden's secretary at a company picnic. He claims that Joanna and Guy Hudson, also in the photo, were having an affair that led to his birth. So this would have been when Zach was the president, and he was the second president. He retired a while back. Please don't. So it wouldn't be this one. Can't imagine it's this one. But the problem I have is that it would mean that Guy was involved in multiple infidelities. Like, this would be Guy Hudson. Was the third president. But I don't know. Well, no, we know this is him. Okay, so we know this is Guy Hudson. The reason we know that is because 5Ps is the only notable person, and this has to be 5Ps because of the star. Whoa. You have to separately... Wow. Okay, they made this much harder. Like, you gotta know what you're doing before you enter stuff. They ain't giving you any help on this one. Whew. Rapper? Singer? Musician? I guess is what it would qualify as. Felix Fellows. Oops. Fellows. So this would be Felix Fellows. Here's our picture of him. All right. And we know his mother was Joanna. Don't know her last name yet, but we do know she was secretary to Zach Morden. And we have her picture here. So we need to figure out what was her last name. She had to have had a spouse at the time then. But we don't need to know his name necessarily. All right. How's it going? All right, let's do some reading. 5Ps, aka Felix Fellows, appeared on the cover of News Time holding a photo of his mother and Guy Hudson. The article concerns his insistence that his father was Guy Hudson. The story was dramatic and sensational, and initially dismissed as fake until a DNA test proved that he was related to Guy Hudson. 5Ps says that his mother, Joanna, was Zach Morton's secretary when he retired, and then Guy Hudson's secretary for only 1 or 2 weeks after that before she quit. The first few weeks that he was president. His parents divorced when he was 4 after his father learned of the affair. Felix and his mother then moved to Portland because she was afraid for her and her son's life. She was a young secretary. She overdosed at 16. But one day his mother never came home from the movie rental store where she worked the register. So she was a cashier then at the end? Last known job? The next morning, they found her dead from an overdose in her car. She had stolen all of the cash from her drawer and spent it on heroin. As Felix went through her belongings, the only things he had to remember her by were a hairbrush she'd always used, some photos, and a stuffed animal from her childhood. But then he found it, a box hidden in the back of her closet. Inside were love letters and photos related to Guy Hudson, as well as a letter from his father containing threats. He threw it all away with the exception of the one photo he appears with on the cover of News Time. He says it was the only one where they were dressed. The only one not from the affair itself. The picture is shown in full inside the magazine and was added to your evidence. The magazine also includes some additional history about 5P's career. Felix Fellows was born to Riley and Joanna Fellows. There we go, we got her name. Then we got his name was Riley Fellows. Why did I think her name wasn't Fellows? I don't know. Riley Fellows. Alright, we're making progress, guys. We're making progress. It's just the easiest one to name, though, so I can't be too proud of it. But has never rapped without a moniker. He tried to find success by opening for other artists and even by selling CDs on street corners in Portland. He has only recently started going as 5Ps to harness the power of his lineage. The writer did some research into the truth of these claims and was able to confirm that Joanna did work for the Roottree Company as a secretary sometime during the early to mid-70s. So mid-70s, 1975 would have been the first affair. Between 1975 and 1982, Guy Hudson got around. And, like, they were married, and these two were relationships that he broke up with his infidelities. His poor wife. I feel bad for Patricia Jones. It also confirms she died of a drug overdose and that Felix went into foster care soon after. They were unable to track down his father. They also reached out to the Roottree Company, but at the moment, the company's blanket statement was, since the release of a recent book, Roottree has seen an overwhelming number of false ancestral claims. None have been factual, and nearly all have been knowingly dishonest. We encourage individuals to reach out to us in an official capacity as opposed to attempting to use our name in the media for publicity. Alright. Let's see what Miracle had to say about all this. Charlatans and thieves. Miracle Roottree fires back. Now this is good old Miracle Senior then. All right. Miracle Roottree appeared on the cover of News Time shortly after 5Piece did. He vehemently denied that 5Piece was a Roottree. This article was from before the DNA test that proved it. Miracle doesn't focus much on the details of 5Piece's accusations regarding his mother and Guy Hudson. Instead, he comes across as exhausted at the events that have been going on behind the scenes, as well as the character of those he feels are attacking his family. I mean, your family kind of deserves to be attacked, let's be honest. He starts with 6Piece's content. He says that, although most of the book was based in fact, it left out anything that wouldn't fit the agenda. He points out Sam's daughter still earns a generous salary for overseeing the farm division of Roottree, and that Sam did the same before her. That Sam's family was not destitute, and that really it was only her son who chose to take on a job with no salary. He claims that though they didn't have to, the family helped pay for her son's medical bills after voting that it was the right thing to do. Miracle also says that the story about his father, Elias, shunning EC was one-sided, leaving out Edward Clancy's blame in the whole thing. Elias gave him a simple ultimatum: stop sinning or be disowned. Miracle says it was EC's own choice and that Elias allows him to earn food and shelter on the company's dime as a kindness, especially considering that he and John continue to live together. I don't want to go into a big spiel about religion and how often it's morally bankrupt. There are a lot of good things in religion as well. But the idea that being sexually inclined a certain way is a sin is just dumb. Yeah, so Miracle's got some religious prejudices against his own brother. And he supports the fact that his brother was disowned by their father for being gay. Miracle then pivots to the fallout from 6Pieces. He recounts a deluge of claims to the Clancy Trust that the family have been subjected to. He doesn't cite any specifics, but says that every time someone comes forward, the family devolves to arguments. They've had to hire outside legal team to help, but so far, every case has been demonstrably, laughably false. All they do is tarnish his family's reputation. He focuses on 5Piece, who appeared on News Time before him. He calls him a grifter and a delinquent, and says he is using their name and products to sell filth to the masses. Of all the accusations, he says this is the most dangerous because it exposes the world to hatred. He cites 5Piece's lyrics as violent, sexist, and ungodly, and prays the boy will repent, retract his lies, and find religion. Right there, find religion. Lastly, he turns to the future. Miracle states that those that wish to hear the true story can join him on his farewell tour this upcoming fall. 5Piece is a charlatan. Now join me on my farewell tour and donate to us. To a good cause. The Miracle's Roottree are planning on touring the country's churches one last time, and that now, at age 71, Miracle is the oldest living Roottree. So the other 5Pieces are all dead. While he plans to continue preaching at his own church in Butler County after the tour, this is your last chance to hear the truth from the man with the most complete recollection of one of America's most notable families in your own hometown. Except for the fact that he was secluded for most of his life. Like, he didn't make any public appearances until towards the end, where he started doing these tours with his sons and his grandson. The article mentions that Miracle's son, Miracle Jr., did not wish to comment, so he's a better person, and has a statement from Clark Rafferty LaRoe through the Roottree's law firm. Miracle does not speak for his entire family. We're working carefully on a plan to definitively disprove any claims of infidelity on our family's past. The article also does not refute Miracle's claim that he's the oldest living Roottree, despite Sam Madsen being born the year before him. It was unclear if Miracle made the claim out of ignorance or spite. Interesting. Probably spite, because he considers his brother to have been disowned. So that would mean Sam being his brother's daughter, would also have been disowned. Okay. So that's all the info we can get from here. We've got some other things that we can look into, specifically being these notable events, the 6 pieces, Roottree Rift, and all that stuff. Let's look into the 6 pieces. Unwrapping America's Sweetest Family by Sam Madsen was released in early 1999 and perhaps assisted by the still relevantly recent plane crash shot to the top of the charts. Alright, we'll go back to look at the book after. Reviews were mixed, and its time on the book's bestsellers list was limited to only 2 months. Most reviewers agreed that the core of the book about Sam's fathers and the struggles they faced was compelling, and that the takedown of the hypocrisy of Elias Roottree was deserved. However, many took umbrage with the timing of the release and the tone of the book, which seemed vindictive. The fallout from the book led to the Roottree Company scrambling to release a statement, and due to a conflict of leadership, famously released multiple conflicting official statements over 3 days. This confusing move was referenced in popular culture due to a late-night sketch about indecisionists, but more traditional analysts have been calling it the Roottree Rift. A few months later, due to Roottreemania, the book re-entered the charts and sold even better than the first time. Indecisionists. Indecisionitis was a disease coined by a popular sketch show as part of a fake pharmaceutical advertisement for Get Together. While the segment isn't fully about the Roottree Candy Company, it was released in the weeks after their bizarre response to the release of 6 pieces by Sam Madsen and references the recent news. In the sketch, a woman ordered a number 5 at the drive-thru speaker. Then, after pulling forward, she changed her mind at the window, asking to switch it to a number 3. This caused a lengthy backup and annoyance amongst the restaurant's employees and other patrons. After she pulled away, as the employees began helping other customers, the same woman barged into the restaurant and passed the current line and loudly complained that she didn't receive her number 5. After this, the sketch transitioned from the restaurant scene into a pharmaceutical commercial. A doctor claims that the woman was suffering from indecisionitis, a disease that causes extreme confusion and irritability, and has recently been found to severely hinder the leaders of large corporations, but could also spread to humans. The doctor then recommends Get Together, a fake pharmaceutical drug. Multiple testimonials use variations of the catchphrase, "When I can't make my tough decisions, I've got to get my jit together," instead of shit together. The final testimonial included a bald man in silhouette with a voice changer saying, "I'm not comfortable sharing who I am, but I am comfortable saying that before I took over my family's candy company, I really should have gotten my jit together." That's hilarious. Alright, we'll look into the Roottree Rift next. Alright, 6 pieces. Sam Madsen's book was released earlier this year and details the truth about Elias Roottree as well as Sam's fathers, Edward Clancy and John Miller. You helped verify her story, so much of the book's core contents are familiar to you. That said, Sam had some sessions on other family secrets and rumors. Much of it didn't matter to the primary purpose of the book, and some of it is new to you, and may be important to your new search. These sections have been added to your notes. Can I use his image again? No. Alright, so Sam's book has a few different passages about her own history with the company and the rumors and gossip she collected during that tenure. She ran the farm for a period starting around 1968 until her daughter Gwyneth took over in 1984. Almost 20 years she ran the farm. Most of the relevant rumors coincide with the reign of Guy Hudson, who took over as president in 1978. Sam was very much not a fan of Guy, and according to 6 pieces, it was an open secret within the family that Guy was very much not a fan of remaining faithful to his wife. Many of their hires at the time were young, single women, and Guy often spent a lavish amount of money on private parties. This was 20 years ago, and Sam warns that most of it is hearsay. Still, you find the following information that may be relevant. One of Sam's farm supervisors was named Elizabeth. Elizabeth had a daughter who Sam never met, but who worked as one of Guy's secretaries. According to Elizabeth, a caterer from a local restaurant called Antonellis met her daughter at one of Guy's parties, and they eloped quickly due to a pregnancy. Elizabeth wasn't aware that the party was for swingers. Rumor has it that her daughter showed up with Guy and didn't seem comfortable switching partners. There are a large number of Antonellis restaurants, not because it's a chain, but because it seems to be a common name for Italian restaurants. You may need to use a more local resource if you're looking for a more specific one. Alright, Antonellis is an Italian restaurant. It's been in Butler County times twice. The most recent time was when it closed in 1992. The owner, Rochelle Zimmer, sold the land and the building was on. Wait, Zimmer? Why does that name seem familiar? I swear I've seen Zimmer before. I don't know if it's in the family tree or if it was from somewhere else. Many years before that, there's a puff piece from Valentine's Day 1978 that asked recently married residents of Butler County how they met. Christine Garland responded she and her husband Steve, who was a chef at Antonellis, met years ago when she delivered produce from her mother's farm. Steve used to work extra hours just to be there during her deliveries. Although they grew apart when the restaurant switched suppliers, they reconnected by chance and eloped at the end of the year. Now she has a bun in the oven, and they're both working as much as they can. She's a secretary, but went back to delivering produce on the weekends, trying to save up money to move to Boston and open their own restaurant. What was her maiden name, though? Elizabeth. Alright, so this is who I'm thinking, but I don't know if this is actually her last name or not. And it talks about them going to open a restaurant in Boston, move and open their own restaurant, trying to save up money to move and open their own restaurant. But last we knew she was a secretary. Christine Garland. She's only mentioned in this article, and she's not searchable online, so we're going to have to leave that one for now. But that's... So we assume one of the kids, the first one, was from when she was with Guy, and then the second kid they had was after these two got married while she was pregnant with the first kid. Okay. Guy's main positive contribution to the company involved expanding to markets previously untapped by Roottree. However, when he went on trips overseas, they were often for weeks at a time, and Guy was known for spending more time and money on unofficial business than meetings with distributors and manufacturers. It was said that he bribed at least one politician to open a factory in Brazil. There is also a section where Sam speculates that Elias may have also cheated on Gwyneth. Gwyneth was always much kinder to Sam than Elias was, and was the first to invite Sam to family events. While she has no hard evidence, Sam always got the impression that Gwyneth was able to coerce Elias into allowing Sam back into the family using some kind of leverage. So we're pretty sure that Elias was the 1921 infidelity. Because, yeah, that would make the most sense if it was Elias. Interesting how this one I don't have to guess the first and last name, but the new people I do. I can't put him... This photo makes it suggest that Miracle also had an infidelity. That's what this photo makes me believe. But it could be a red herring. Alright, let's get back into that. Instead of it being a natural course of events, she mentions that Elias and Gwyneth were known to loudly argue, sometimes about another woman. Sam also says her son Ernie once asked her, "Who's Beth?" because he overheard them yelling about someone with that name. As far as Sam knows, Elias once had a secretary named Elizabeth, a different Elizabeth than the supervisor from the farm, but she never met her. So Elizabeth was a secretary. Alright. So that's what we got from the book. Let's look into the Roottree Rift. The 3 press releases from the Roottree Candy Company after releases of 6 pieces were referred to as the Roottree Rift due to the clear conflicts between them. The first was fairly standard. It stated that there was no president of the Roottree Company, but that the entire family was made aware of the release of the book, and that they would be meeting as soon as possible. Only then could they verify the legitimacy of the claims it raised and decide next steps. The second release was emailed to business newspapers 3 hours later. It was announced that after a vote, Ron Roottree would be taking over temporarily as interim president. It also went on to state that Ron was aware of the book, had verified the claims within, and would look into compensating Miss Madsen and her family immediately. Wasn't Ron the one who got in trouble? Or is that the other brother? Okay, no, it's not. Odd. It also stated that the company's lawyers would be taking immediate steps with the family to revisit the Clancy trust terms to make sure nothing like this could happen again. It was quickly clear to business reporters and analysts that the time between the two press releases would not have been logistically sufficient. Even using conference calls. It was reported on many news channels, and a third, much shorter press release came the next day. It claimed that a draft of the announcement was made prematurely, and that Clark Rafferty and Ron Roottree would be taking over the company's first joint presidents. It also stated that any compensation planned would be based on a stringent verification process. Huh. So Clark and Ron became joint presidents as the sixth president. Still nothing on here about Ronald Roottree. Let's try Ron. It's an older version of this page in the Time Travel Archive. So this is the new page. So this is how it shows us that information has been updated on some of the pages. Ron was announced as president of the Roottree during the Roottree Rift. But the next press release immediately reversed the announcement and instead stated that Ron and Clark would take over together. A few weeks later, Ron was dropped from the title entirely. Never mind, he wasn't a joint president. There are hundreds of results about this development, but most articles are retelling of basic details. Some veer into heavy speculation based on an article about Ron in Business Watch. Ron has also done some interviews saying that the truth of what went on behind the scenes is not something he wishes to discuss. Instead, he hopes to release a movie about it someday. 3 weeks ago, Ron's mother Gwen died in Paris, France. He and his brother Robbie have seemingly made amends. Okay. So we want to look into Ron on Business Watch, so... Business Watch ran an article about 2 months after the Roottree Rift about what really happened with Roottree. The article mentions that nobody from Roottree that they reached out to was willing to go on the record. Instead, the timeline of events have been constructed from public record, accidental leaks, and a source on the inside. The only parts that are new to you are also the most vague parts, the ones supposedly confirmed by their anonymous source. It's gone. The timeline says that the family actually held a preliminary vote after Carl Roottree died, but before the release of 6 pieces, and decided they wanted Ron Roottree to take over, because of his experience running RR Productions, and because he was a well-known and respected Roottree. But Ron seemed way too eager and personally motivated. They were worried he would gut the Clancy Trust to remove Robbie. Oh yeah, because he previously had tried to get Robbie out. The family was notoriously unwilling to do anything that could risk their wealth. They stalled, and Ron became frustrated with the delay. When Six Pieces came out, he saw his chance to force action while the family was in the limelight, and released the press release himself in an attempt to get the ball rolling fast. This caused chaos within the family. They tried to save face by allowing Ron to take over as co-president with Clark, but according to Business Watch sources, Ron was impossible to deal with. He seemed like he was unwilling to protect the Clansed trust, and they eventually let him go. After that, the role passed solely to Clark, who nobody was excited about, but seemed like the safest choice. Okay. Interesting information about the family, but nothing to do with any of these affairs and the children that come from them. John Doe. I'd love to figure out which one is this from 1998. It might explain why Ron tried to gut the Clansed trust if he had an affair with somebody else in the family. I don't know. I guess that wouldn't really explain that. Alright, so let's look up Clark. Just the updated page on Clark. So the new president of Roottree Corporation, this does not include Root, which appears to have its own new leadership. Wait a second. The Root website has a small memorial section to the deceased members of the family, but it contains no new information. The most recent catalog had an entirely black cover with no text on it. On the leadership page, you learn that Root is currently managed by a designer who was apparently Brenda White's second in command. You don't recognize her name, and she seems unrelated to your search. There's also a scholarship page on it. You find information about the Roottree Sisters Fashion Scholarship. It is awarded to 3 underprivileged high school girls each year who wish to pursue a career in fashion. Apparently, it also gives them an opportunity to show off their designs on professional models on a real runway. According to the site, the fund was created directly from shares that would have contributed to the inheritance of the Roottree sisters if they were still alive. Like other aspects of the Clansed Trust, it's managed by Ruby Legal Enterprises. Ruby Legal Enterprises is the name of the law firm that has been hired by the Roottree Candy Company. The company is named after its head lawyer, Ruby Spratt. You can't find much about the company from before this year. Roottree's internal law group was complicit in such a cover-up. They hired outside counsel. The Ruby Legal Enterprises Group now seems to have ties to multiple aspects of the corporation, including the candy company and Root. They were recently in the news due to a high-profile lawsuit they raised against Cicely Sanchez. Cicely Sanchez is an author best known for Portrait of a Changed Man, released in 1979. Her follow-up, Foreign Gospel, did not perform as well critically, but still sold quite respectably. She has written a few more books since then, including a biography of Van Gogh, but her first 2 are her claim to fame. According to a site about authors, Cicely is known for her nonfiction, with a focus on exploring darkness in human psyche. Recently, Cicely appeared in a magazine called Piketty with an article about a book she had been commissioned to write for Guy Hudson. The magazine and Cicely herself were immediately issued a cease and desist due to its inclusion of pictures that she never had rights to publish. The issue was pulled from store shelves, making it an instant collector's item. In an issue that focused on a talking toy fish and the demonic messages it supposedly said as the batteries ran low, Piketty had an article about a canceled book by Cicely Sanchez. The book's subject was Guy Hudson, and the issue was said to contain pictures that Cicely did not have rights to publish. Because of the pictures, this issue was pulled. The version found in these archives is incomplete. The other thing I want to look into is she wrote a couple of interesting books, apparently. Out of print, the book's description has this to say: what if everything you stand for, everything you know to be true today could disappear in an instant? All of your politics, relationships gone in the blink of an eye. Would you still be you? She tells this powerful true story about a man who woke up after being saved from drowning in his backyard pool and became an entirely different person. Include our interviews from those that knew him best before, as well as a one-on-one chat that paints an entirely different picture. You won't be able to put it down without wondering, what if that were me? That would certainly be interesting. Born Gospel tells the tale of a man from the Catholic Church who claims he was told by God that he should travel to Thailand and begin to preach, specifically with the goal to convert 10,000 people. He returned to the United States after just 2 years, claiming to have succeeded. This book tells his version of the story, but the author also traveled to Thailand to investigate these claims and talk with some of the so-called converted. Interesting. This popular gift be filling homes with satanic messages. Alright, so this was an issue of Piketty magazine that contained an article about Cicely Sanchez. The story concerned an unrelated book she had written about Guy Hudson. It seemed that it used photos of Guy that Cicely did not own the rights to publish. Unfortunately, the magazine was issued a cease and desist. The magazine was pulled from shelves, and the version you found in your article search had the relevant pages removed. Well, so how does this help me? It says there's linked to 8 other clues. There's 8 clues tied to this article, but they were removed. So we need to figure out how to get a hold of the missing pieces. Let's go back a bit. Let's learn about Ruby Spratt. Ruby Spratt, like her legal company, is relatively elusive. The most complete source of information you can find from before her time with the Roottrees is from the website for a magazine owned by a major airline. She was the subject of one article from a recurring series about modern-day success stories. Ruby grew up in foster care, but excelled at school and earned a scholarship to study at Mid-Eastern University. There she graduated at the top of her legal class and was quickly hired as a lawyer for a prominent firm. There are a few high-profile corporate-involved cases she was part of. One was a legal consultant for a class action suit against a manufacturer of steering wheel covers. Another was to help a local gas station chain in her hometown with the rollout of a promotion that allowed gas station customers the ability to bet on the price of gas. That's weird. The blurb ends by calling her firm a double threat. Her company's services are a cross between a traditional lawyer and a PR manager. All right. So back to Clark. In early March of 1999, about 5 months ago, it was announced that both Clark and Ron would be taking over for what was essentially described as a transitional period in the aftermath of the Six Pieces. About 2 weeks later, the company released a press statement that thanked Ron for his work, but announced that Clark was the new permanent president. Most of the information about Clark you knew already. Many descriptions of him tend to focus on his advertising career and that his mother was Lauren Roottree. Few seem to touch on his complex and volatile marital history. Since taking over, Clark has tried to remain out of the spotlight, but did have one notable foray into the public eye. He gained a lot of support when his first move was a statement in favor of accepting Sam and her family into the trust. This also served as an announcement that the Clancy Trust would no longer be handled by anyone in the family, since due to their financial motivation, none of them could ever be impartial. Which, fair. So, let's look into Roottreemania. We really have not learned a lot of information that helps us with this stuff yet. Even evidence-wise, we haven't gotten a lot yet. So it immediately followed the announcement about 5Ps being a root tree. Collectively, popular culture seemed to focus on the Roottree family for a few weeks before everything felt oversaturated and society moved on. Because of the 5P saga, an underlying through line to how pop culture treated Roottreemania was an excuse for everyday people to claim that they were also root trees. Hey guys, just so you know, I'm also a root tree. Where's my money? Daytime talk shows had I'm a Secret Root Tree episodes. Ah, that explains the t-shirt on the starting screen now. Late night hosts and guests made jokes about other lost members of the family, and there was a widely shared website where you could fill in your own name to find out if you were a secret root tree. When you submitted your name, it simply said no, with an image of Clark giving you the finger. Roottreemania lasted only a few weeks, just long enough for Six Pieces to re-enter the charts and to trigger new printings of other Roottree-related media. This included Lauren's diaries, VHS releases of Gwen's old movies, as well as countless other unauthorized biographies, which mostly seemed to attempt to capitalize on the Roottree sisters, Carl and Brenda. Interesting. So this is, I'm going to highlight this. That's stuff we're going to want to try and dive into. New printings of the diaries, the VHSs of Gwen's old movies, and unauthorized biographies. These re-releases were too late to successfully capitalize or extend the craze. As a result, most of them were failures, and countless novelty shirts that had variations of Secret Roottree became immediately unfashionable. Some people still wear them, ironically. I think this is the biggest hint at like what I should look into next is this stuff. They got reprints, to see if any of it's changed or updated. We're gonna look into Anani Mom. Anani Mom was the second high-profile case of potential new root tree added to the Clancy Trust. Instead of claiming herself a root tree, however, she claims she slept with Guy Hudson and that her daughter was a root tree. But it turned out that was false, is what we learned, so I don't know why this is here. The accusation came during the height of Roottreemania and began with a brief TV interview. She appeared in the shows in a disguised voice and promoted an article about herself in News Time. In the TV interview and article, she referred to her daughter as Jane Doe Roottree. The name Anonymom was not self-inflicted. It seemed to spring up organically because nobody knew how else to refer to her. Piketty is not afraid to expose details that other publications would avoid. Shortly after the announcement that Jane Doe Roottree was not a Roottree, Piketty exposed personal details about the story of Anonymom under the headline Anonymom the Anonicon. They said Anonymom worked as a manager at a department store in North Carolina. Her daughter's name was Courtney May. They also said that the woman that vouched for her famous cover story, they didn't identify News Time, perhaps to avoid being sued, is named Corinne S. and that she had filed for bankruptcy. The article speculates that Anonymom and Corinne were in on it together, and even speculates that they might have been lovers. They might not have been Guy Hudson's, but they might have been this one, maybe? No, I don't know. Piketty is not a credible publication. Their information wasn't particularly actionable. Very few people seem to notice or care. News Time article. An anonymous woman appeared on the cover of News Time holding a picture of her daughter, Jane Doe Roottree. The first and only mention of the phrase Anonymom in News Time came the week after when they issued an apology for featuring her in the first place. A summary of the initial cover has been added as your evidence. So this would have to be a red herring. I mean, they blurred out both. Alright. I am going to save the read into this, guys, for next Sunday. We are going to be working on moving on to the next Let's Play series, hopefully later this week. It wouldn't be for a couple of days, because I've got reasons that I will not be awake at my normal time in the mornings. And also, I've got to do some research and stuff to see if I can make the next Let's Play happen based off of your guys' recommendations on my community posts that I put out about these. But yeah. It's been nice diving into Roottreemania after the Roottrees are dead. This feels like this is going to be a little bit more difficult of one, which is kind of daunting, because the previous one I was struggling with towards the end. So hopefully you guys will be around to help me out. We will likely be doing this again Sunday, sometime around noon, maybe early afternoon. I'll be able to give you a more exact time next weekend. But that's how I'm going to plan to handle these Roottreemania episodes, is to do them as Sunday live streams. So that way you guys can swing by and help me out when needed. But that's going to be it for this one. Hope you all have a good day, and I will see you again next time.